Have you ever noticed how, like, when you're feeling down, everything kind of feels a bit harder? It's like your mood just kind of spills over into, well, everything you
Well,
do.
yeah, totally. It's all connected, right? Our thoughts, our actions, our well-being, like you can't really separate those things.
Exactly. And today we're going to really explore this connection. We're going to take a deep dive into how we can shift our thinking and actually cultivate perfect health from the inside out.
Sounds good. We'll be looking closely at Chapter 16. It's called Supplementary Instructions, and it's like a really practical guide. It's almost like a user manual for well-being.
Yeah, a user manual. I like that.
Yeah.
And it's part of a larger work, right?
Right, the science of being well. This chapter, though, is super focused. It's all about offering you, the listener, concrete steps you can take to really boost your well-being.
So our mission today is to kind of pull out those golden nuggets, the most actionable stuff from this chapter. We want to give you a toolkit, a set of tools you can start using, like right now, to take charge of your health. Love it.
So where do we even begin? What's the core idea here, the foundation of it all?
Okay, so the central principle, the thing that underpins everything else is it's about creating a complete sense of oneness with perfect health.
Oneness with perfect health.
Okay, so it's about aligning your thoughts, words, even your actions with this vision of well-being. And at the same time, you're consciously cutting ties with any patterns, any thoughts or words or actions that connect you to sickness.
Gotcha. So it's more than just like positive thinking. It's about really weaving health into the fabric of our lives.
Exactly.
So let's start with something we do all the time, talking. How does our speech play into this, this journey towards perfect health?
Words have power, right? I mean, they really do. They reinforce the images and beliefs we hold in our minds. So if you find yourself saying things like, ugh, I had a terrible night's sleep, or my back is killing me, you're basically, you're kind of etching those negative experiences deeper into your consciousness. Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying, like, even seemingly harmless complaints can actually, like, solidify those negative experiences.
Yeah. This chapter, it really emphasizes the need to be mindful, really vigilant about our speech.
So what are some specific phrases, like red flags, we should be looking out for in our own speech?
Think about those everyday complaints we all make. I'm so tired, I always get sick this time of year. This headache is never going away. We say these things, and it feels like we're just stating facts. But what we're really doing is keeping our focus locked onto the discomfort, the illness. We're strengthening that mental link that we're trying to break.
Right. It's like we're feeding the beast in a way.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's the antidote? What kind of language should we be using instead?
This chapter encourages us to actively choose words that reflect the state of health that we're aiming for. So instead of saying, I had a terrible night's sleep, you might say something like, I'm really looking forward to feeling refreshed and energized tomorrow.
Okay, so it's about shifting the focus, right? Instead of dwelling on the negative, we're looking ahead to the positive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And instead of, complaining about that headache, you could say, I feel my body actively working to restore balance. The key is to consistently use language that paints a picture of the health you want to create.
It's like we're reprogramming ourselves with our words.
I like that, reprogramming. That's a great way to put it.
So speaking of information, this chapter also has some pretty strong opinions about, well, the kind of health information we should be letting into our minds.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting and maybe a little controversial. The text strongly advises against reading, what it calls doctor books or any kind of medical literature.
Really, especially if
those sources present theories or ideas that contradict the principles outlined in the science of being well. The reasoning is that, when you expose yourself to conflicting ideas, it can create doubt. It can weaken your confidence in the path you've chosen.
So it's like we're protecting a delicate system from getting mixed signals. But why is this source material so confident that it holds all the necessary insights?
It presents the science of being well as a complete and self-contained system. It compares it to an exact science, like arithmetic.
Okay, so if you start adding or subtracting things, the whole equation falls apart.
Exactly. Introducing outside information, especially if it's contradictory, is seen as potentially disruptive. The goal is to maintain a clear and unwavering focus on the principles within this specific framework.
That's a very focused approach. Now let's talk about the people around us. How can their health, or lack thereof, affect our own journey, according to this chapter?
This is where the chapter emphasizes extending that focus on perfect health, not just to yourself, but to your interactions with others. The advice is to be mindful, maybe even a little cautious, about engaging with other people's complaints about their health.
So are we supposed to be uncaring? What about empathy?
No, it's not about being uncaring at all. It's about protecting your own mental environment. Think about it. If you're constantly surrounded by conversations about sickness and suffering, even if it's not your own, it's going to have an effect on your mental state.
Yeah, it's hard to stay positive when you're always hearing about what's wrong. So how do we handle those conversations, when people want to vent about their health issues?
The chapter suggests trying to gently steer conversations away from the topic of illness if you can. So if someone is talking about their ailments, maybe try to shift the focus to something more positive. Or, you could offer some encouraging thoughts about their health.
Okay, so redirect, refocus. But what if they just keep talking about their illness?
It even suggests that if the conversation remains fixated on sickness, it might be necessary to excuse yourself from the situation. It sounds harsh, but the point is to safeguard your mental space from what it calls the poisonous influence of diseased thought.
It's almost like creating a mental boundary, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a bigger picture here too, right? This chapter talks about a sort of collective impact.
Yes. It suggests that if enough people, what it calls enlightened thinkers, consistently refuse to dwell on or engage in conversations about illness, it could create a huge shift in the collective consciousness, a movement towards well-being. By not giving energy to sickness, we're contributing to a more positive, health-focused environment.
That's a pretty big idea.
It is.
Okay, let's move on to something a bit more personal. Pain. We all experience it. How does this philosophy view pain?
The perspective here is, it's definitely different from how we usually think about pain. It says that instead of seeing pain as something to be feared, to be suppressed, we should see it as a signal that the body's principle of health is working to overcome something unnatural. Pain, in this view, is an indication of healing. It's a good sign.
Whoa. So we need to change our entire mental framework around pain.
Yeah, it's a big shift.
So how should we be thinking when we experience pain?
The advice is to cooperate with the healing process, to understand that the pain is there for a reason. It even suggests supporting this process, not just mentally, but with practical things like applying warmth. The key is to keep your mind focused on the good work that's happening.
So we're not resisting it, we're working with it.
Exactly.
But what about when it's really intense, when it's hard to think about anything else?
In those cases, the recommendation is to rest. Really relax and focus your thoughts on cooperating with that healing power. It's a good time to cultivate gratitude, to really trust in the principle of health to do its thing.
So even when it feels bad, it's actually a sign that good things are happening.
That's the idea.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about weakness. We all experience it sometimes, especially when we're, first trying to adopt a new way of living. How does this approach handle weakness?
It acknowledges that weakness can happen, especially as your body's adjusting. But the advice is to avoid pushing yourself too hard. Listen to your body, rest, and use that time to cultivate gratitude.
What should we be focusing on while we're resting?
Instead of dwelling on how weak you feel, direct your thoughts to the strength that's coming. Remind yourself that the living one, that life force within you, is actually building strength during those times of rest.
So it's not about ignoring the weakness, it's about seeing it as a temporary stage, right?
Exactly. It's all about perspective.
Okay, let's tackle something a lot of people have questions about. Constipation. This chapter has, a slightly different take on it.
It does. It actually recommends checking out Horace Fletcher's work, especially his book, The ABZ, or Our Own Nutrition, to get a different perspective on bowel regularity. The main idea is that if you're eating right, if you eat only when you're truly hungry, chew your food really, really well, and stop eating the moment you feel satisfied, your body will actually produce very little waste.
So the idea that we need a bowel movement every single day is that kind of a myth?
That's what this chapter suggests. It says to basically dismiss concerns about daily bowel movements, especially if those concerns come from, what it calls doctor books or conventional wisdom.
And it suggests something else too, right? A temporary solution for people who might be struggling with this shift.
It does. It suggests an occasional colon flush with warm water, but only as a way to ease mental anxiety, not because it's physiologically necessary.
So it's more about the mental side of it.
Exactly. The goal is to completely let go of those concerns once you start to experience the benefits of what this chapter calls scientific eating.
Okay, so trust the body. Let's talk about exercise. What kind of physical activity does this philosophy recommend?
It's all about natural movement, the kind that comes from enjoyment. Things like, playing, having fun, doing things you love, like horseback riding, cycling, playing tennis, even gardening.
It sounds like the key is finding something you genuinely enjoy.
Exactly. If you're forcing yourself to exercise, you're missing the point. It should feel like recreation, not a chore.
And what should our motivation be? I mean, why are we exercising?
You should be exercising because you feel healthy and vibrant, and you want to express that through movement, not because you're afraid of getting sick or you're trying to earn health.
It's a celebration of health, not a pursuit of it. I like that.
It's a subtle but important distinction.
One last topic, fasting. What's the take on long fasts?
The chapter says that long fasts are almost never necessary under normal circumstances. And it even suggests that the lack of hunger people report during long fasts is often self-induced. It's a result of fear and expectation.
Oh, interesting. So what should we be doing instead?
Listen to your body. Pay attention to genuine hunger cues. And if you're not hungry, just keep doing your thing. Trust that hunger will return when your body actually needs food.
So it's about trusting our body's signals.
Absolutely. The chapter says that abstaining from food when you're not truly hungry will actually lead to greater strength, happiness, and well-being.
So the overall message seems to be one of deep trust in our body's wisdom.
It is. It's about living in alignment with these principles, with the science of being well, and trusting that the body will naturally move toward a state of perfect health.
So if we had to sum it all up, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive into Chapter 16?
The core message is that it's crucial to consciously align ourselves with perfect health in our thoughts, our words, and our actions, and to combine that with an unwavering trust in our body's ability to heal and thrive when it's supported by this principle of health and these natural living practices.
It's a lot to think about, but we hope you, our listeners, feel empowered to take these ideas and really start applying them in your own lives.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, here's a little something to ponder. Take a moment to really listen to your own internal dialogue, the words you use to describe your health and well-being. Notice how that inner narrative, that health story you're telling yourself, might be shaping your experience.
Such a good point.
What if, by consciously shifting that narrative, even in small ways, you could actually start to transform your overall sense of vitality? It's an ongoing journey, a process of self-discovery. And this chapter gives us a really powerful place to begin.
Absolutely. A great place to start.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, be well.
Be well.